Rings there. Me, my judge,
Oh yeah,
Charles.
I'll clear it up. I'll clear it up. Don't worry.
Okay, all right. Just double checking.
Yeah, no, it's fine. How's things in the States? I'm assuming that the fallout from the last couple of days is still going on.
Oh, it's not going to stop.
It doesn't end. Yeah, I mean, it's an excuse. I mean,
How's things in the
anytime the right can yell at the left for whatever reason they're going to. So
Yeah, we had a bit of a scary march yesterday. 150,000 turned up, which was the largest, far right protest I can think of in living memory.
I saw some of the video footage, and someone was saying that looks like a lot more than 150.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
Sounds like the numbers were tweaked a little bit.
Well, I'm hoping that that's all it was, because it just becomes even worse to think about.
All right. We ready to start then?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm here all day.
All right.
At least for the next 2 hours.
Do the 3, 2, 1, and then 20 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 468, recorded on Sunday, September 14th, 2025.
Needing more coffee? I'm Joe.
Can't get enough coffee. I'm Bill.
Pithy and interesting. I'm Majid.
It rained today. I'm Charles.
Still loving PPAs, I'm Jim.
First up in the news, Linux Mint 22.2 Zara released. Mint Monthly News, August. Insecurity and privacy. Plex is a problem again. And finally, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussions, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description at mintcast.org/show notes. And I'll note real quick, those show notes will actually list wanderings for this episode. We're not actually doing wanderings this episode.
No, I've taken the wanderings out, put them into the next
well,
one, so it won't be on the show notes.
I posted, before you did that, I posted them to the website.
Oh,
so,
I see. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
That's a copy and paste kind of thing. Anyways, moving on. The news. Mint 22.2 Zara released, and I did a quick update to 22.2 about an hour prior to the show, and it's exactly the same, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember back in the day, HTC used to have a slogan, their kind of brand slogan was quietly brilliant.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. There are times where I think that, I'm sure it's patented and, whatever, but it would work really well for Linux Mint. Just quietly brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when when you got a show to do, it was probably irresponsible to do it right before showtime, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I like to live on the edge.
Not as irresponsible as putting an Arch-based distro the day before a podcast.
Yeah, but I would not put that on.
Wouldn't it?
I wouldn't do that on this machine. That would be
I know this because I did remember. I did that last time. Remember?
But no. from the Mint blog by Clem, the release of 22 or Linux Mint 22.2 Zara was announced on September 4th. There's links in the show notes to what's new in Mint 22.2. We went over that in previous episodes. Some of the most notable things, I suppose.
Actually, I find it really interesting how quickly it ended up in the update manager.
Yeah, I wonder.
Because if you go and look right now, it's there.
I even got a
And
little
this
notice.
hasn't been all that long.
I got a notification about it, which I've never. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've never seen that happen before. It was a little thing in the. What is it? It's not like the notifications. It was like a. I don't know, stuff that they want you to see, and then you could actually update it from right there. But yeah, you're right. It's been in the update manager all weekend, which
Since the release almost, yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Which is a little bit different. I remember it's taking a while for several of the recent releases to make it into the update manager, and mostly being told, no, just, go ahead and do a nuke and pave and install from scratch. But yeah, this time it's right there and ready to go.
And it just works. I mean, you have that expectation now, and that's not very exciting, but that's kind of the way we need it to be, especially on production machines like this one right here. For crying out loud. There's
quietly
I
brilliant.
have to wonder. I also have to wonder if there's a lot of difference between doing a fresh install and doing an update. If it's actually equivalent.
I mean, it just depends on the machine.
I was going to say, back in the day, the whole thing was, the preference was always to nuke and pave, wasn't it? And then now things have changed and things have gone on. And I've got to be honest, just not out of any particular principle or out of any particular leaning one way or the other, just the most recent Mint installs that I've done, whether that be 22.2, 22.1, whatever it might be, LMDE, they have been nuke and paves. So I don't actually know what a in-place upgrade would be like. Did any of you? So you did an in-place upgrade, Bill?
Yeah.
And so how did you find it?
It went pretty much almost as fast as a normal upgrade for me, because I only do them once a week, and I'll get, let's say, like a normal upgrade where you got quite a few things to install along with some kernel upgrades. That's about as fast as it was. So it felt almost like that. And like I said, I did the reboot and it started right up, and unceremoniously, it's not like they have a thing in your face when you've booted into the new system, say, oh, congratulations for upgrading. No, it's this. The one thing I did notice, I kind of had to work really hard to notice it, but they've mentioned something about adding kind of a blue hue to the coloring.
I can't tell that on my machine.
You got to have one right next to the other to see it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's it's one of those things that's quite relatively subtle.
It is.
But
it's
and it also depends on what kind of monitors you've got. If you've got crappy 50 quid monitors like I have, I don't think I could. In fact, I can see a decent picture at all is probably good enough.
Right.
So
we've got links in the show notes to what's new. We got the link to the release notes for 22.2 Zara, and then there's a link there telling you how to upgrade from 22.1. Just to
Jim, you're on. If I remember correctly, you'd done a fresh install of 22.1, hadn't you, a couple of weeks ago? Have you had the upgrade come through?
Yes, I have 3 machines with Mint on them, and I've got the notification for the update. Now, I haven't actually done it yet. I was waiting for somebody else to be the guinea pig, but I can tell you, on one of my 3 machines, I actually recently made a big update. I went from 21.3 to 22.0, and for the first time, because on that machine, I don't have a lot of my data, but I do have a lot of fair amount of customizations and things. So I backed whatever I needed to up just in case, and it took about 90 minutes. But I actually used the command line Mint upgrade tool, and
Yeah.
let it do its thing. It had to ask me a few questions along the way. I had to uninstall a few things because unlike most people or most of you guys, maybe I use several PPAs, and
I've got one or two.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
It actually worked. It took a little while. I let it do its thing. It didn't crash or anything. It successfully upgraded from 21.3 to 22.0. The only thing I had to do was go in and software sources and go back to the command line and re-add 5 or 6 PPAs because of course the base changed, right? Ubuntu Jammy Jellyfish to Ubuntu Noble Numbat. So all the PPAs are gone now. So, but it was very easy. I was worried the first time I had done this if it was going to be problematic.
See, that's the thing with PPAs. You really ought to go and make sure, because if you're going to run into a problem with PPAs, it's because that developer has not created a PPA for the next major release yet, and so you'll be kind of left out in the cold with that software. But it seems like
there was only one app which I knew going into it that no longer worked, and that was App Image Launcher.
No.
Other than that, the other ones like YTDLP, Surfshark, which is my VPN program, and a few others, QBitTorrent, the various things that you definitely want to have the latest versions of as a routine, matter of course. All you had to do is go back in and just add the PPAs, and somehow it knows what version you're on, and it just it says Noble, when you add them back in. Everything works fine. So I was happy.
Good times. Of course, you would be aware the replacement, the modern replacement for App Image Launcher is, what is that thing? Gear Lever, which strangely enough is, no, you don't like that one?
Flatpak, I don't do.
Oh, that's the weird thing about it. It's a flat pack, but it's a tool to manage your app images. I don't know. I think if you had to have one flat pack, I don't know. Maybe that wouldn't hurt you so bad. But that's the modern tool I've noticed, and it's got a lot of automation in place to keep stuff up to date and add your app images to the menu and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah,
it does add it to the menu, and it's supposed to have an update feature, but I haven't actually seen an update in app image.
I don't have a lot of app images, so I've not really seen it. I tried to use the Audacity app image, but I didn't like how it looked like a Windows 95 app. The theming was just completely non-existent with an app image.
There was one of the forks that was actually pretty good. Hold on, let me see if I can bring it
Tenacity. I think Tenacity has an app image.
That's it.
Yeah.
I thought app images don't work straight away due to some library in the Ubuntu-based distros.
You need libfuse 2 to make.
Yeah,
those.
that's it. Yeah, which is not being maintained, is it?
Well, I think Fuse 2 is not. libfuse 2 was the thing somebody came up with as a drop-in replacement for all of that. That's the limit of what I know about it.
Okay.
I don't
Mine are
know.
working fine, apparently.
But that's what you have. It's still in the repos, so I mean, it's still the thing you need to have in order to make it work.
Yeah, because that's been the thing that has stopped me from using loads of app images, me personally, and the fact that they just, I don't know, maybe I'm just not used to them as I am to flat packs. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah,
Flatpak was
There's a
So
couple
it's
other options.
much more similar to that. It's much more similar to that, Windows paradigm of a .exe. So
yeah.
that's what you're
everything.
comfortable with.
It reminds me of what we used to call Windows portable files. It's just self-contained. You don't need to double click it and have it install into Windows. You
Yeah.
just double click and it opens as an app. And in my experience, the half a dozen or so app images I use on Mint, they all work just the same way. I've never had a question about a dependency or anything. The only thing I do now is, since App Image Launcher went away, I just manually, take a minute or two and add the entries to the menu so I could hit super left key, the left super key, and type the letters and have it launch. I went and picked my own icon, to represent, and it works fine.
I'm gonna have to check and see how they work, how well they work from a network drive.
That would be
Can I
interesting.
launch it
actually.
on
You're a
multiple
madman.
computers from a network drive?
Well, to read on here, the OEM support was already implemented during the Mint 22.2 development cycle. So we were able to progress really fast on this. It has now been tested in real conditions on top of the new package base, and it's working very well. The new Mint 22.2 features were also ported to LMDE 7. We're adopting the libadwaita 1.5 changes to libadwaita 1.7 and reapplying patches at the moment. Note that i386 is no longer fully supported upstream by Debian 13, so LMDE 7 will only ship for AMD 64. How do we feel about that?
Okay. So, as someone who's only ever had a passing acquaintance with LMDE, the last time I tried it out, it seemed to work fine. And I didn't have any issues. However, obviously, this is only this time round. Now, I did, after having a conversation on OTC a couple of weeks ago, decide to try out the new Debian 13, right? And I remember having this discussion, I think, on OTC about 32-bit and stuff like that. And I think it makes sense for Debian 13 to not have 32-bit support, on the basis that whilst everything might be very current and recent now, remember that Debian is one of these things that lasts for many, many years. Stability is the most important thing, etc., etc. You may well have the same install if you've installed Debian 13 for the next 3 years, 4 years. I mean, this one took 4 years to come up, didn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe even longer, actually. So I understand, because then you got to think of it. If you think of it from a project perspective, you're thinking to yourself, not what is needed now, but what's likely to be needed in 4 years' time when we're still supporting it and Debian 14 hasn't come. So from that perspective, I do understand why they've done it. Now, I know that I'd got some pushback about, games and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know enough about all of that. But I can't imagine many people who have a Debian install or LMDE 7 will be massive gamers, personally. There are other gaming-focused distros that people would go for. So I think it makes sense. And at some point, you do have to just move on with the times. But hey, what do I know?
Well,
I mean, the 32-bit drivers for games are pretty well established, and those can be packaged, and they don't really need to be updated all that much. Maybe they need a bit of tweaking when whatever parent system they're on needs some tweaking, but that's about it. And, if there was a need for 32-bit, then someone would still be developing for 32-bit, so...
And somebody is. You can still get Slackware. You can still get...
yeah,
exactly.
The niche,
There's
is getting
places
smaller.
can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's not like it surprises me a little, because I would have always thought that Debian would be the very last holdout, and I suppose they were, as far as like that league of distributions is concerned. But I don't know anybody with a 386 computer, and I wouldn't want, if I did try to get one up and running, it would be solely for just
Nostalgia.
purposes, and that's it. So
A 386 that was what, circa 1997?
yeah,
Maybe somewhere in that range.
my last one was, I had in 2002. I bought, it was a Pentium 4 single core 32-bit with 512 meg of RAM. Boy, was I a hot shot with that.
Oh yeah,
Running-
man! Talk about
running
sexy
XP.
technology.
Yeah. And then it was like almost within like 2 years, everything started going 64-bit, and I felt kind of left behind. But it took a while because a lot of people were still, they had 64-bit machines, but they were still running 32-bit operating systems. That was a thing for a while, actually.
Yeah,
So
I got
again-
rid of a computer last year. Finally, I put it out of its misery. It was a Core 2 Duo from January 2006, according to the bio, and it had Windows XP. I remember buying it new at the time. It was my high-powered new computer, and it ran a 32-bit version of Windows XP, but it was 64-bit capable. So for a while, I had Bodhi Linux on it because it only had 2 gigs of RAM. However, I finally got rid of it. It worked fine. It was just the fan made so much noise. This was driving me crazy. So I was like, you know what? Let me just get rid of this thing.
Yeah.
It probably felt like it was taking off or something.
Yeah.
And that was the thing about those. Let's see, I had a Dell that was like that. It had the Core 2 Duo in it, and it was weird because when I went back and found this machine, I could put a 64-bit version of Linux on it, but it took me forever to figure out that it had UEFI. You would go into the BIOS and it would say EFI, but they weren't really implementing EFI at the time, so you had to do a legacy boot in order to get it to boot Linux. It was a big ball.
I think it was one of the Asus transformers that ran Windows 8, that in order to get it to run a 64-bit Linux, you had to force a 32-bit EFI on there and then point that to a 64-bit operating system.
Yeah.
So,
I think there was some of the Lenovo Windows 8 tablets which were on Intel Atoms, which were 32-bit, if I remember correctly. But I mean, we're talking about over a decade ago.
Yeah. They were they ran a 32-bit version of Windows, but they were actually able to run a 64-bit operating system. But like I said, you had to run that 32-bit EFI and point it to the 64-bit OS.
Could you just do legacy boot with those, or were
Not the tablet ones. They wouldn't really allow it.
yeah? So that's a lot of trouble. It's not worth looking back on, I don't think. So
It was fun.
good riddance to 32-bit, I guess.
Oh yeah, here's a question. Since we're talking about Debian, how? Because I remember some of you guys have run Debian, the new Debian 13 as well. How different is? I mean, apart from the desktop environment, because it's Cinnamon rather than GNOME, but how different is it Debian 13 to LMDE 7?
Just off the
You
top
don't
of
have
my
to know the
head.
answer. I'm just
From what
just-
other people have told me, the gap is getting smaller and smaller.
Okay.
So they're becoming a lot more similar.
You'll have these weird situations where, depending on when the latest, whenever the latest version of Mint proper was released, compared to when the latest version of LMDE was released, sometimes you'll have more up-to-date software on LMDE, but then as time goes on, it will diverge somewhat, and it's kind of strange just because of how long Debian holds on. But the difference in your experience, of course, it kind of depends on the machine, but you've just got a few more tools on the Ubuntu based version for making it easy to get hardware set up and all that. You kind of, with the Debian version, you got to know a little bit more of what you need, which chances are you're going to have what you need because it ships with all of the open source drivers. So you'll know right away because something won't work, and then you'll have to go and get the driver for it or whatnot. But most of the time, most people don't have much of a problem unless it's NVIDIA, and then there's a whole nother. I don't know how that works with Debian. You got to get the package, I guess.
All right, should we move on? Because I don't know if there's much else to do. We've talked about most things, haven't we, about it?
Well, there's just a little bit more written.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I missed that. Go ahead. Go.
Linux Mint 22.3, although the latest release came later than expected. We're currently focused on LMDE 7. We're still planning on having a Mint 22.3 release in December. This is going to be a very short release cycle. The priority will be on the new version of Cinnamon and shipping some of the important work in progress / plan features, which are started earlier this year, and that's going to be the new menu, which I'm eagerly anticipating, the status applet, and the Wayland compatible handling for keyboard layouts and input methods. So it's a steady march onward towards Wayland. How many of us, show of hands, how many of us care? Look at all them hands go up.
Well, I mean,
Wait, no, I do. Wayland,
no, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I am going to put my hand up, actually, on an audio podcast. Yeah? Actually, because I find like kind of touchpad gestures and keypad gestures and stuff like that they're baked into Wayland, aren't they? And so it's like one of these things, if you get used to that sort of thing, and if you're used to using them on your different desktop environments, like GNOME has quite a lot of them, but so does KDE, for example, as well. Elementary somehow managed to do it on X11. Mint Cinnamon does have some of them, but they're not fantastic. So actually, it would make sense if, it's another feature that's going to be coming. People getting more and more Wayland adoption means people are using more and more of these kind of input modalities. So it's a case of just coming up with the times. Is it a deal breaker? Of course not. Is someone going to stop using Linux Mint because it's only on X or only on Wayland? No, of course not. But it's the direction of travel. It's that 32-bit thing again, isn't it?
And anecdotally, I'm hearing that people are getting better battery life and things like that because it's just more optimized. So that would be what I'd be interested in.
Well, I know X Wayland has come a long way, and I haven't checked recently to see the status of things in that regard. But there are some very X11 centric applications that I use, like X2Go, and I use it a lot. So hopefully it gets ported over, or or X Wayland makes it work correctly. But
you tried tools like that, Rust Desk and things like that?
I have not yet, and I probably need to. It's been a long time since I went out of my way to find a new application. I found what I like, and I just stuck with it.
Yeah, so, why not?
Maybe I'm just getting old.
Funny that.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, Majid, what do you got to say about KDE?
Okay, so KDE has its own distro again. So this is around on quite a few. The actual link that we've got in the show notes is from lwn.net, but it's been around quite a lot. I actually saw a video about this by Nick on My Linux Experiment. The KDE project had been talking about this for the last couple of months, an idea of having a bespoke distribution dedicated to KDE. And so they have just released an alpha version of it, which is it could, I quote, include the best implementation of everything KDE has to offer using the most advanced technologies aimed at providing an operating system suitable for everyone. Eventually is an interesting point that they put in their press release. Nate Graham wrote on an announcement blog on September 6th that accompanied the release of this. Now, it's different in that, not different actually. Let me take a step back. Up until now, if you wanted to have the newest and best KDE, you had two options. You either had to be on an Arch-based distro where everything was getting updated and so you were on the bleeding edge, or you used KDE Neon. Now, KDE Neon was basically an Ubuntu base with the KDE framework and the desktop environment on top of it. And they wouldn't do anything to the base. They would just keep iterating on the desktop environment. Now, that has worked for the last, I want to think 6 years, I reckon KDE Neon's been around, I think, 6-7 years. But obviously, there is some technical things that go with that. And so the KDE project decided that they would just have their own distro and they would use Arch as its base. So that means that, updating base packages as well will be, as soon as. Although Pacman isn't actually included, and Arch is actually only used for the base operating system. And they're going to compile everything with the KDE Builder or using Flatpak. Nate Graham was actually asked the specific question of, why is another Linux distro needed? And he said, it's a huge producer of software. It's awkward for us to not have our own method of distributing. Yes, KDE produces source codes that others distribute, but we self-distribute our own apps on FlatHub and Snap, etc. It's a natural thing for us to have our own platform for doing that distribution too, and an operating system. Many others have their own software managers like Mint and Elementary OS. And besides, this matter was actually settled 10 years ago. Oh, it was 10 years ago, KDE Neon. Because that was our first bite at the in-house Apple, and the sky didn't fall. Everything was beautiful and nothing hurt. But it is, at the moment, just being held together by a heroic volunteer. And although it has worked well for a decade, they think they've got to the limit of what they can do with it. The reviews that I've seen of it around very much are, yes, this is an alpha. Don't use it on a production machine or anything like that. And there's actually very few apps pre-installed, so you have to go off and use Flatpak or something like that. I'm not surprised actually that this has happened. I've always thought that the KDE Neon idea was a little bit of a hack. You could have a discussion as to whether desktop environments need their own distros. I don't know enough necessarily to say one way or the other, but I suppose if you've got control of everything from the beginning to the end, it makes life easier for the project developers.
I don't know.
What do you guys think?
If the purpose is to test the desktop environment, then I don't see the point, because it might work for your bespoke distribution, but most, and I mean by far, most people are going to end up using it on either something Fedora based or something Debian Ubuntu based. So it's strange thinking to me that, coming up with your own distribution so that you're in control. I see why they would want to go with an immutable base, and then just Flatpak and whatnot. But
doesn't KDE also have a bunch of their own applications?
Oh yeah, they got a complete top to bottom.
Yeah,
suite.
I mean, it's one of those operating systems that I've always meant to try out, but never got around to. The whole KDE Neon, just to see how well KDE Connect works with it. Because I understand there's supposed to be a lot more added in functionality, like being able to properly send messages back and forth, view your screen, things like that. With a lot less of the jankiness that you find trying to run it on Linux Mint with Cinnamon.
I've always thought Neon was probably, if you were going to have a distribution where you were testing the newest of KDE, but you wanted to make sure your base OS was the best it can be, then I think Neon has always kind of had it in the bag right there, because it's it's the LTS, just like Mint does underneath, and all of their tooling, which is basically just a minimal plasma installation with a few applications on top of it. Not a lot. If you've ever installed KDE Neon, you don't
Yes,
get
I
a whole
have.
heck of a lot.
It doesn't have a lot of apps at
Yeah.
all. It's a very lean distro.
They're not trying to
In that
push
sense.
their suite of applications on you by any means, but it's presumably if you're using something like Neon, then you probably know, or you should know what it is you like or you want to use. But that makes more sense to me if the purpose of it is to have a stable base to test out your platform on. Now, if you're trying to get into the business of distributions altogether, you've looked at the way everybody else is doing it, and you're saying, you know what, they're out of their minds. We can do this better. We're gonna take control of this completely from the top to the bottom, and this is going to be a KDE distribution completely. Then yeah, but then I gotta wonder, gosh, should everybody that makes a desktop then widen their focus to also the rest of the distribution as well? We rely
There's
on these.
It would be a lot of duplication of effort,
It
wouldn't
would
it?
absolutely, yeah. So I don't know. I reserve my opinion because I have not tried this new KDE thing, or I've not even really looked at it much. But it just seems like a strange diversion of focus to me. But what do I know?
Yeah. What is it, Martin Wempers or Popey? I can't remember which one of them. Every time a new distribution comes up, he's like, "What are we doing? Why do we keep doing this? We
Yeah,
should
they got-
have less distributions, and more distribution creates more confusion to the quote general public." But
Make apps, not
that's his
distros.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that was Popey if I was to point it out, but I don't know. It's Linux, so we've got this.
Yeah,
If your skill set is to make distros, go make a distro. Just keep in mind that people are going to rely on you to keep it up to date, keep it secure. So I don't know. All the power to them. We'll be watching to see how it goes. It's interesting. I'll put it to you that way.
yeah. I never hear anything about. Very rarely I hear anything about KDE Neon. I hear about the KDE desktop, but I hardly ever hear people reference KDE Neon. So
Because it's not much. It's just because it's very, as I say, it's very lean and bare bones. Do you know what I mean? And it
It
is.
is.
right. Yeah, exactly.
If it's not. There's really very little point to it unless you're a real KDE like fanboy, which it's perfectly fine if somebody wants to be that. It's fine. It's just it's good for a bit of a distro hop and a bit of a mess around, but it doesn't seem to be that great for actually using it.
Right.
I think it's the opposite with Cinnamon. To what Charles just said, it seems like if you're using Cinnamon, you're most likely using Mint because they're the developers, right? And Mint is the flagship. I very, very rarely hear other people talk about using Cinnamon, even though it's available on other distros. So it's exactly the opposite of the case of what Charles just said.
Yeah, you're right with something like Cinnamon, and I've used Cinnamon on Arch, and I've played around with Ubuntu Cinnamon, a little bit. Interesting, and it works well enough. If you don't mind snaps. But yeah, I think you're right. You have this. There's certain desktops that seem to be synonymous with the distribution that backs them up. Probably because the Mint developers also developed that desktop. So anyway, moving on. Firefox to end 32-bit support in 2026. Here we are again. 32-bit going away. Has anybody tried to run Firefox on a 32-bit machine at all? Is that even...
No.
Not in the last decade.
No.
Yeah.
So I struggle to. I feel like I should care sometimes, but then I really.
No, you don't have to care about everything.
I suppose not.
Yeah, and and just because you might like things to stay stable doesn't mean you have to be a complete luddite. Do you know what I mean? I need to do everything in assembly, and why the hell am I got to use a mouse? I just want to do everything keyboard, blah blah. You can be sometimes you just need to grow up and move on with the times, innit?
Yep.
And let's be honest, it's not as if Mozilla is full of money and full of resources that they can devote to all of this kind of stuff, is it?
No, huh?
But at least they've got their Google money. They've still got their Google money.
I think whatever will free up resources to where they can work to keep Firefox up to date, secure, private. Those are the things that they need to be focusing on, I think. And as far as 32-bit goes, I suppose, God, I'm not even running it on a 32-bit Pi, so I know 32-bit ARM is still a thing, but who would dare run a 32-bit desktop on even a Pi? I don't know. That doesn't feel like a thing to me. Moving on. What do we got here, Jim?
I saw an interesting article on XDA developers website, and it was an article that said this free and open source app runs any Windows app on Linux with ease. And according to the article, we all know there are other options to run Windows apps on Linux. There's Wine. If your app happens to be compatible and you can get it working, that's one option. There's something called WinApps. And then there's this thing which is called WinBoat. And according to the article, it is a lightweight containerized tool that makes it easy to run Windows environments on Linux using Docker. It's like a portable Windows sandbox, but unlike traditional virtual machines, it doesn't bloat the system and surprisingly isn't resource hungry. So the person who wrote this article tried it out. And he said, to put it simply, the Windows OS runs as a VM inside a Docker container, and it uses WinBoat guest service to fetch the necessary data from Windows. You can access it via FreeRDP, a browser-based interface, and it makes it flexible, efficient, and user-friendly. And the best part about WinBoat, according to the writer, is that it's free and open source. There's no paywall, and the whole project is community-driven. He goes on to explain how to set it up. So if that's something you're interested in playing around with and you're familiar with Docker, I would suggest reading the article. I haven't personally tried it, but I did find it to be another interesting option. And I'm curious if you guys use any Windows apps on Linux and how you do it.
Wine has been around a long time, and it's hit or miss with Wine. But there's some apps that need a whole lot more layers of Windows than Wine is able to provide, and something like this might just be able to bridge that gap.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds cool, it being, runnable from Docker. So it sounds like a new implementation, as opposed to what you mostly see with these applications that say that they're going to run Windows on Linux, and most of them just turn out to be wrappers or helpers of some kind for Wine. So
that's basically
I mean,
all they are.
Like
Yeah, they are
Proton.
basically.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in my personal experience, the only time I've ever got Wine stroke Proton to work is if I'm on my Steam Deck and I'm actually playing games. Every other time I've tried to use Wine, whether it's on Mint or, sometimes you can get the Mint Software Center has a whole bunch of these kind of Wine GUIs with which you can, launch and this, that, and the other. It just never seems to be as smooth for me. Now, that could just be because I'm an idiot or a noob, but I don't know what you guys. I've never had great experiences with wine. As I said, outside of gaming.
Just you got to go to Wine HQ and add their PPA and install wine staging in order to get the best possible experience with it. And even then, your results will vary. And it's best to kind of do a little bit of searching to see what kind of experience other people are having. But the only thing, I don't know, really, an oversimplification is that the only thing that Wine is doing is it's translating library calls and API calls from all of the, I don't know, DirectX stuff, for example, on a graphics-related program over to an OpenGL or a Vulkan API. That way it can render on the screen and then stuff like that. But some applications need like hardware access to the reason why a lot of real good production, audio and video production software doesn't work is because that software needs hardware access. It needs access to APIs that are not necessarily public. So you need more layers of Windows in order to make that happen, and that's where something like this might be a little bit more interesting because it would have more of those Windows layers in place. But then again, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting my hopes up. I can't think of anything Windows that I really absolutely have to have, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a way of trying to, close the app gap, as some people would call it. But really, the app gap is generally closed anyway. I mean, if you're really wanting to use Linux, you're probably using free and open source software already.
Yeah.
There might. I mean, I know there are some specific creative suites and things like that, and in Adobe or whatever, Final Cut, these things that clever creators use. But would those people even be on Linux anyway? Wouldn't they be using, if they were that, wedded to those tools, then they'll be using something with which they can use those tools with, right? If on the other hand, they're really wanting to use free and open source, they might be using Kden Live, they might be using Audacity, do you see what I mean? So I've never really understood, unless it's an enterprise thing, and it's about, you want to have Linux running on everything, but there's this one specific legacy thing that needs Windows. But yeah, I mean, as I said, outside of gaming, I don't know the need, but I might be, again, talking out my ass.
I'm sure somebody can find a niche somewhere where they need some Windows application, and that's the only reason that they haven't moved over to Linux, blah, etc. But I mean, like even Microsoft, has gone to web-based apps, so you can still use all of that crap. But there's still Play on Linux, which a lot of people use. I don't know if people are still using Play on Linux. But for like people that didn't necessarily want to use Steam and Proton, it's available, and it has more than just games on there, and it will do all the wine settings to be able to run whatever application you have, as long as someone in the community has put the wine settings on there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but just going back to the article, I must say it does look like a pretty good application, Winbolt. So it might be something worth trying out if you really, really need to use Windows something or the other.
I like the fact that there's at least those three options, Wine, WinApps, which I think just starts a virtual machine up for you and kind of integrates it into your menu. And now you've got Winbolt if you want to mess around in Docker. Am I the only person who uses a Windows app on Linux between us five?
What do you use?
What do you use?
Well, I mentioned this on one of the roundtables. I'm playing a board game, and there's a board game playing engine called Cyberboard. It's a Windows app, and the group that I'm playing with, that's what they use, and it works perfectly. I installed Wine in Linux. I think I did it through the PPA, like Bill mentioned, and yeah, it works perfectly. It's integrated into my menu. I had to like manually do that, but yeah, it works. And it's a very simple app, just to move your pieces and stuff around a board game and save the file and, email it or share it with Dropbox. But yeah, to me, it's a technical challenge. For the most part, Linux has everything we all need as a general rule. But yeah, if there's one obscure app you want to use for whatever reason, I like the fact that there are options and you don't need to fire up a virtual machine necessarily, or go, get one of your computers out of your stack of laptops and force yourself to use Windows just for that one thing.
No, I can't think of anything that I have that.
As I said, outside of gaming. Nothing.
Yeah, I've got a little Yahtzee game called Open Yahtzee that you get from SourceForge. And
because that sounds so secure, this.
Well, I mean, it just hasn't been...
Mr. Security and Privacy right here.
It's fine. I'm sure it's fine.
It's fine. I didn't need that money in my savings account anyway.
Well, there's always been, and I guess there's still available, a Linux version, but it relies on old versions of WXGTK. So it's just easier to install the Windows version of it on Wine, and it just looks the way it's supposed to. It's just an open source Yahtzee. And that's the thing. You're still using open source software. In fact, you're using more open source software because you have to have an open source compatibility layer in place. So you're actually using more open source bits. So for all the Windows hate, well, you're using a Windows piece of software. Yeah, well, it's open source. So there. Go put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Okay.
Anyway, Jim, you got another one here.
Yes, I do indeed. And this is my pet favorite topic. If anybody's noticing a bit of a theme coming here. So the Phronix have an article on the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite, and it's...
I think you missed a couple of articles.
Yeah, Jim's got
jump
another
ahead
one.
there, Jim.
Oh, did I? Sorry, which one? Okay. I apologize.
Yeah, it was me next, actually.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No
I'll stop. I will stop. Go ahead, Jim.
How embarrassing for you.
You could go.
I blame the hoster. I blame the hoster. I tell you.
Who else heard me say, Jim, you got another one here?
I did. That's why I said, I think you missed a couple articles, Jim.
Yeah. All right. So is Roku driving the final nail in the coffin of traditional TV? So I thought this was interesting. According to this article from slash.org, Roku is celebrating a milestone that says a lot about where the entertainment business is heading. And for the third month in a row, people in the United States spent more time streaming on Roku-powered devices than they did watching traditional broadcast television. Nielsen's latest data shows that Roku-powered devices account for 21.4% of all TV viewing in July, and broadcast comes in at 18.4%. According to the article, it says the gap may not be huge, but it marks a steady trend from May to June where streaming also comes out ahead. Roku says its share of TV viewing is up 14% year over year, which suggests people are not just trying streaming, they're sticking with it. So, and lastly, according to the article, Roku powers streaming on a whole bunch of devices, and it accounts for more TV units than the next two operating systems combined. In my case, I use Fire TV. So I do watch a fair amount of TV. I don't use Roku because I like the little bit more open setup that Fire TV has. But I thought that was yet more confirmation about where things were going. And I was curious if any of you guys have any of the streaming sticks hooked up to your TVs.
Oh
So
yeah.
I've got a Roku, which I used for a while, and then um, there was some reason I gave it away. Oh, so because basically my mom needed some kind of streaming stick. Basically, is the short answer. There's a, and so I gave her the Roku and and because I like you, I prefer the Fire TV interface. And so I thought, well, this is a good opportunity. I can give the Roku to my mom. She's not going to be installing extra apps or anything like that. She's just going to be watching
Right.
BBC and Netflix, and my sister might put on Prime Video maximum because my sister and my mom live together, and so it's good for that, those limited, and I think the fact that they're so plug and play. There was a friend of mine who was asking me about, oh, I need to get some kind of TV streamer thing, and he ended up getting a Roku on my recommendation, and he said that it had been a game changer for him because he was able to now control what his two daughters were like 5 and 4 are watching and stuff like that, which he wasn't able to do with the standard interface that's on, that he had on before. So I think it's very useful in specific use case scenarios. I suppose maybe for people like yourself, Jim, and maybe like me, want a little bit more flexibility, and hence we prefer the Fire TVs. I'm still a Chromecast holdout. I love my Chromecast, man. I still prefer that to anything, which is a bit
Didn't
weird.
they
I know.
kill off the Chromecast?
They stopped.
No. So they've stopped supporting the original and the second generation. The one that came after that, which is the 4K one, which is called the Chromecast Ultra, is still being supported. But then about 18 months ago, they did a big major rebrand and got rid of the Chromecast name on the new things and called them Google TV streamers and doubled the price. And it just became like a Google's version of an Apple TV. So maybe Chromecasts will die out, but as I said, I just find that the easiest way of doing things. I don't need an extra remote control. I've got my phone with me most of the time. I'll use that as my decide what I'm going to watch and stuff. And now everything works with it as well, because in the past Amazon used to have a bit of a thing and it didn't used to work with Chromecast, but now it does.
Yeah,
got-
well, they actively excluded them. There was a big
Yeah.
fight between the two companies, but that's old news. And no, I have a Roku TV, so I don't have a Roku stick. I did end up purchasing a Miracast stick
Okay.
specifically to use on one device so that I could do wireless decks.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked okay. There was a little bit of latency, but nothing too bad. It
Okay.
was eminently usable.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds pretty
But
cool, actually.
yeah, other than that, I have PCs hooked up to everything.
I've got Fire Sticks, and then I've got Fire TVs, which is like that Roku TV, except it's like it has the Fire Stick built in. I got 3 of those, and then I've got a NVIDIA Shield, which is by far the most premium Android TV experience I've ever seen.
I'm amazed how it's 10 years old, and yet
Yeah.
it's still so.
It's still getting
you know,
OTA
peop-
updates and everything.
Yeah, and the people swear by it. Do you know what I mean?
It is still the best because it's still the most properly powerful 64-bit little piece of kit. Now, I mean, it was over $200 for an Android TV device, which, most of the time you expect to pay what's a Fire Stick, like $30-$40, something like that.
Yeah.
And the same with Roku. So this thing is more expensive, so you would expect more comparatively more performance out of it, but it does. But the Fire TVs are fine. They're slower and they're sluggish and they're kind of, if you haven't turned it on in a few days, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of acts like it doesn't really want to work at first because it's probably doing.
Well,
well.
it is basically it's just basically an underpowered
very
Android
very
device, isn't it?
underpowered, yeah. But it works. It's fine. It you put the apps on there, including Jellyfin. Jellyfin installs on every single one of these devices and works perfectly
Oh yeah,
well.
we were going to do that, weren't we? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a point. You just reminded me about my jellyfin adventures.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, we'll
Yeah,
get that up and running.
we'll sort that out later.
That's on
Next
my
show.
to-do
Next show.
list as well.
It once you wrap your head around it and get it up and running, I mean, it just stays running. I've not had a problem with it. I've had mine running for about 3 years now. And
Well, I got to get mine back up and running, but it requires me to finish migrating everything and
yeah.
a whole bunch more setup.
I've been doing some learning on Docker here lately. The only thing I hadn't really wrapped my head around yet was backing up Docker, because containers are ephemeral, but the volumes that represent storage that is not ephemeral, that needs to be kept, like all of the metadata and everything on a Jellyfin server, that goes off somewhere in a /var/lib/docker, that sits in a directory in there that represents a mount point in the container, and all of that is kind of declared in the Docker Compose file and whatnot. And I really didn't have a huge idea of how to get all that backed up or even where it actually was, and so I've been doing some learning on that, and now I know. I feel a little bit better, because the one thing I've worried about with all of these websites running on Docker containers and all the other stuff, what happens if it all just crashes on me? I don't know where to get all the information from, and so now I do. It seems like a lot at first until you wrap your head around the concept of it all, and then it's one of those eureka moments, But no, the Fire TVs, the thing about Fire, I don't know how Roku is, but you've got to side load Kodi onto these things.
Yeah, so side loading and putting on different apps, because it is basically an underpowered Android thing, is relatively easy. Roku, personally, I could never manage to do it. I'm sure clever people can. I never managed to do it, and so I just left it.
Well, you've got to, on a Fire Stick, you got to get a certain type of browser that has like a download manager built into it.
Yeah, you have to get you have to download a browser which then has a download manager on it.
Yep.
And then but that's not as big, not as hard as
it's a bit of a mess around with a TV remote, going to a website and downloading an APK and all that. It's not.
But it works. It only takes a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I may do with it.
I don't much see the point on a Roku of installing something like Kodi.
I mean, to be honest,
it's got a Jellyfin app. Yeah.
Well, if all you had was Samba shares or something like that, and you needed, of course, looking back, I'd probably just get VLC or something like that and connect to it that way. But if you want a nice interface with metadata and all that stuff on all your files, then and if all you had was Samba shares or NFS shares or whatever, then.
So I think in the past, especially when Kodi was a big thing for watching stuff which might not be 100%.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know I know you have no idea, but unlike poor innocent Hauser here, there are some people around in the world who found that they could do some questionably legal things. Anyway, the point I'm trying to say is, nowadays, things like Kodi and whatever don't really work as well. A lot of people are already subscribed to about 15 separate streaming things. If anybody really has got a problem against streaming, they'll do downloading via torrents, ISOs, Linux ISOs, obviously, nothing else.
Torrents, what's that?
Yeah, I know. So I don't think there is that market of people, the people who would want to sideload something down onto their Roku exists anymore. So therefore, it's probably not a big deal.
Very niche, yeah. but it was
I got one word, Smart Tube. I've mentioned it before, but I use the downloader app to download Smart Tube, and it has changed my life. That's all I'll say about that.
Downloader. I think that was actually the name of it too.
That's what it's called.
Yeah,
the app is
Downloader.
called Downloader.
And it.
Yeah, I guess
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Charles.
I was just going to say I must be the old man here because when it comes to streaming, Jim, you are right that streaming is taking over, viewing content, unfortunately, the way I look at it. Netflix started this and everybody jumped on the bandwagon. And unfortunately, as consumption and consumers or vendors, that they have more control and they can take things away as fast as they can give it. And that's disheartening. And like I tried a Fire Stick. I have one. It's in my closet. Hated the Chromecast because it's a stupid remote or whatever. I have a Roku stick. I haven't used it in about a year and a half or so, or two, because I bought it for Paramount for the prequel to Yellowstone. I can't think of what it's called, but then for Disney, for The Mandalorian and Andor. There's another one. It was a game that they made a series out of it, and I can't think of it. What it's
Fallout.
called now.
The Last
No,
of
not
Us.
Fallout. No, not Fallout. It's something
Halo.
else. But anyway,
Halo.
Halo, maybe that was what it is. Yeah, that was it. Which was a really good show. I was surprised I liked it as much.
That's
But
all
I guess the whole
Paramount
thing, and
Plus.
then and the remotes just drive me nuts for all these different devices. They're just, I don't think they're designed with usability in hand. They're just annoying. And they just, like I said, it's just annoying.
I hate
Dude,
having
that's
the
interesting.
I hate having the distributor buttons at the bottom of the remote, right where you grab a hold of it, and then it's going to go straight off to Voodoo or something you never use, or Netflix, and then
About
it takes
8 years ago, I had when I had DirecTV, and I had a Harmony Universal remote, so you could program it for the soundbar, the TV.
Yeah.
It was simple. It was great. Of course, that died, DOA, because it went out, they stopped supporting it and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, like I said, I'm not a fan of the way viewing, because I just think the consumer is going to get screwed in the long run, personally.
Look,
And
I used to love the Note 3 because it had the IR blaster on it, and it had all the applications, and you could control everything in your house with it that was IR. But now you you buy a $14 adapter on Amazon, you hook it up, and you hook your phone to it, and it does the exact same thing.
well,
Wi-Fi,
for my
and you
part-
can control everything in the room.
I've still got one of those Harmony remotes, and I haven't used it in years.
Oh, do you?
But yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
but you paid a lot more for that Harmony
Oh, it
remote
was
than I paid for my
expensive.
$14 adapter.
I know it wasn't
Yeah,
$14.
I mean, a lot of the Chinese still have IR blasters on their smartphones.
Oh, Huawei or something like that we can't have? Wouldn't you know?
No,
it?
I mean Xiaomi do, Oppo, Vivo, but yeah, you guys, you
We're not
guys
allowed
don't
to
get
have
anything,
all
do
that.
you? Yeah, no.
I was just going to say that when I first got these remotes, like this one, I thought you said it was really small and it felt awkward, but after 7 years almost of using it, I got used to it now. And except for a couple of small things like the fact that the mute button is not in the center on this particular version of the remote, it's like off center. And these buttons here on the bottom, I ignore, of course. But I'm used to this now, and this is the whole interface to my television because all the streaming is done holding this remote. Changing channels is done with this remote. I flip to my Recast or Tableau TV for my DVR for over-the-air television. This small remote now I've grown to like it, minus those couple of little niggles that I mentioned. It feels like this is the interface to my TV. And now when I pick up one of those like old school, like TV remotes like this one for one of my TVs. This feels like a gigantic monstrosity with a million, superfluous buttons that I'm like, how the hell did we ever live with those things back in the day?
I've gone through
Well,
on a couple TVs in the house. I've
anyway.
gone through like 2 of them, those remotes. I've actually got 2 brand new ones sitting on standby. Those like you just held up right there, because they just get worn out. Because they are muscle memory, aren't they? The go back button is up and to the left, and then it's just a matter of the navigation button in the middle. Literally worn them out. So luckily they sell for like $5. They sell replacements, and you put batteries in them, and the Fire TVs just seem to know what's what when you turn it on and hit the button. So, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. My wife really likes the remote for the Roku TV, and it always like drives her nuts when I pull out my phone and start controlling the TV that way.
It's a good thing you just said you were pulling out your phone. Sorry.
I'd make a comment, but this is a family-friendly show.
Really? Okay.
it's supposed to be. All right, Majid. Now,
No, it's not
No,
me.
it's not his
no,
turn.
it's
It's
not.
my turn.
oh
It's my turn.
gosh, well, there was no link there, so I didn't know.
Yeah, you're right. There's not a link here because I'm not basing this off of any one article.
Gotcha.
I wanted to bring this in because it's something that I've been watching. So it's not necessarily completely Linux related, but Borderlands 4 was released on September 12th. Now, it's only been obviously 2 days since then, and most of this was written yesterday when it only been out for like a day. And there's mostly mixed reviews. It seems either you love it or you hate it. But the bad reviews seem to talk a lot about the characters, and the good reviews seem to talk a lot about gameplay itself. I'm going to reserve judgment for now, watch some more stuff on it, and see how things go. Now, a lot of people are saying that the Steam Deck simply is not powerful enough to run it, and I'm not really surprised at this point considering the rest of the news. But if that is the case, then maybe I'll have to set up another computer to stream it to my Steam Deck. But that might not happen for a while either, because after further research, it seems that it's having trouble on running on PC in general. Unless you have like really, really super high-end hardware, and even then, the frame rates don't seem to be that great. So if you're on the fence about buying it and want to play it on PC, you might have to wait for some time and for some optimizations to come out. Or, like I said, have very, very top-end hardware. And I'm not willing to shell out all that money for new top-end hardware so I can play one game. So hopefully the optimizations do happen for this particular game, because I know that there were some other top end games that came out that said that everybody said, oh, that'll never play on Steam Deck, that'll never play on Steam Deck, and then once the optimization started coming out and people found the proper settings, it would run. So but this being as new as it is, and with the Steam Deck approaching 4 or 5 years old now, yeah, I can kind of see it. So, but I'll probably need to get a new graphics card, but I don't want to have to invest in a 5090 in order to be able to play one game. So, not going to happen?
I mean, it's a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not going to dump that kind of money into that kind of hardware for one game. But yeah, that was just the news that I wanted to bring about that. And now I think we're up to Majid, unless anybody's got any other commentary on it.
Go on then.
I was just going to say, I don't know about that particular game. I don't play brand new games.
How old is the Steam Deck? When did that come out? Hold on. Somebody just asked.
3 years, I think.
3 years.
I think it's amazing as a general idea that most games, except for the ones with some kernel level anti-cheat, work on Linux now. I was even reading some of the people on the FreeBSD forums talking about how good the gaming is working for them. So we're long past the time where you need a Windows computer to play most games, with notable exceptions.
Okay, the Steam Deck was released February 25th, 2022.
Booyaka!
So,
I told you
yeah,
3 years.
3 years, 3.5 years. So not 5 years, excuse me. I was incorrect. But it's been out for a while now.
And they've done so much. I mean, almost a standing start to where they are now. It's amazing. And how it's completely revolutionized the idea of Linux as a gaming platform. And now all these
Yeah, I mean,
influencers are all getting Bazite and Arch and Kashi and Garuda and, showing how, their game on that now. I mean, it's just...
it's
Anyway,
really the reason Proton took off the way that it did. So,
it's that thing, innit? You got to invest if you want something to last. And that's what Steam did. Yeah.
and now it's your turn, Majid.
Okay, then. All right. So, people might know that I often like to talk about the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite chips and Linux, partly because I've got one. And so there was a news article in Phoronix a couple of days ago, which is also around on a couple of other websites as well. And basically, it talks about how Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite Linux performance has been improving, but it's still short of the AMD Ryzens and the Intel Core Ultra. There are images, Ubuntu images, and I think Fedora now as well, which work with the Snapdragon X Elite processor, which, as I'm sure everybody knows, is an ARM-based chip. It was launched just over a year ago now, with Microsoft's stupid Copilot Plus strategy, when they should have really just gone on the fact that it's got epic bad battery life. But anyway, epic battery life and performance, which competes with Apple Silicon. Anyway, the newer firmware that has come and the newer developments that have come in the more recent Linux kernel have improved the performance, but it's still behind the AMD Ryzen AI 300 series and the Intel Core Ultra laptops, second generation Lunar Lake. Now, there had been a bit of a hiatus after their testing back in May, because the newer ISOs were not working on all the different laptops. Acer, which, just as a side note, I've always had issues with Linux and Acer machines. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just unlucky. But yeah, unsurprisingly, the Acer Swift laptops didn't really work very well with it. And so it's been a while trying to get some more testing done. The newest one, based on 2504, is out. There are, again, still some caveats about it, and some issues around UFI, but the improvements are getting better. So for people like me who do have one of these devices and would like to use a Linux on a Snapdragon device, then there is some progress. I have a bad feeling, though, that progress is going to be limited, and part of the reason for that is that these Snapdragon X Elite chips haven't really taken off. The whole Copilot Plus thing has fallen over. Microsoft recalls going down the toilet. Everybody's spending huge amounts on the AIs. So I do have a bad feeling that these are going to get ignored, because even if you have a device which has caught mindshare and is actively developed for a while, even that can be difficult to maintain. And the example I'm thinking of is Asahi. So there was so Asahi Linux is the Linux distro for the Apple Silicon devices, and there was some more news about how another developer has left that project. And so yes, there's support for the M1 and I think maybe the M2, but there isn't as much support for the M3 and M4. And they've done a lot of work, and there's only been a fraction of that done on the Snapdragon X Elite stuff. So, and if that project is starting to falter, then it worries me about the future for the Snapdragon ones. But I thought it was interesting, and as I said, I've got skin in the game because I've got a laptop with one of them on. I did have Ubuntu on it, but then a firmware update basically reactivated secure boot and then balked my partition. So I've got to redo it again. But yeah, that was just something I just wanted to bring up and talk about on the news.
Quick question about Snapdragon is what is the price point compared to a Snapdragon generally compared to AMD and Intel, and are they comparable or are they?
So initially, when they were released, they were comparable, right? So if you got a Microsoft Surface 7, for example, with a Snapdragon X Elite processor, it was about the same as if you went off and bought one with a Intel Core Ultra 2 or the AMD, whichever generation of Ryzen it is. Now, I have seen over the last couple of months quite a lot of the Snapdragon ones being discounted, probably because they haven't sold very well. And you would assume at this time of the year there'd be a refresh of the chip. Now that refresh hasn't necessarily come, but I am seeing some deals on them. So I think I saw, for example, I'm sure I saw one that was down like £500. Like originally had been like $12.99 and was now going for like $6.99 or $7.99. So now the performance thing is interesting because I found out something interesting, that is that the newer AMDs and Intel basically tried to say that they have the same battery life and they have the same performance as the Qualcomm X Elite. But if you look closely at their performance testing, they only have comparable performance if they're plugged in compared to the Snapdragon. They will throttle a lot the minute you unplug them. And then they will have the battery life of the other one, but now you haven't got the performance. You either have one or the other. You plug it in, you get the performance. You take the plug out, you get the great battery life. And that wasn't made clear initially, and people are kind of discovering that now. I mean, I only found this out last week when I interviewed the guy for my podcast, and he was like, "You did know about this, didn't you?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Oh no, look at some of these charts and stuff." And I looked and I went, "Oh yeah, shit, you're right." So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting with the big power and less consumption. It seems like it's kind of stalled as far as getting it to be mainstream, but they are been working with Microsoft, and there you go, Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft, that famously sensible company.
All right, well, nothing more on that. That's it for news. Moving on to security and privacy. All right, who wants to talk about Plex?
I can talk about this one. There weren't a lot of articles on this with a lot of details at the time when I was putting this all together. Londoner actually found this one, and this is basically the extent of the article that is in here. So I'm going to run through that real quick. Plex user data is exposed. Plex has alerted its customers about a security incident that may have affected user accounts. In an email sent to subscribers, the popular media server company confirmed that an unauthorized third party gained access to one of its databases. The breach exposed emails, usernames, and hashed passwords. Plex emphasized that passwords were encrypted following best practices, so attackers cannot simply read them. The company also reassured users that no credit card data was compromised, since Plex does not store that information on its servers. Still out of caution, it is requiring all account holders to reset their credentials. Users are being directed to reset their passwords at plex.tv/reset. During the process, Plex recommends enabling the option to sign out all connected devices. This measure logs out every device associated with the account, including Plex media servers, forcing a fresh login with the updated password. The company says it has already fixed the method used by the intruder to gain entry and is conducting additional security reviews. Plex is also urging subscribers to enable two-factor authentication if they have not already done so. Now, I did get the email saying that they had been compromised because, I have a Plex lifetime pass, all that jazz. But I did not click the link in the email. I went out to Plex manually and just changed my password out of pure caution. And then, the news did continue coming that it actually was a thing, et cetera, et cetera. But you also, because of the severe lack of detail, have to wonder if this is another way to try and, cut off some of the long-term password sharing that's been going on. Force everyone to log out of the plexes that are far away.
Yeah, I think that's quite very, very well likely, to be honest, actually.
But they could have done that without the whole rigmarole, too. I mean, just force everybody to log out real quick. Whoops. But yeah. I don't know. But I did change my password. It doesn't sound like this breach was all that much of a breach.
Mm-hmm.
If all that they got was encrypted anyway. I still want to know what method that they used to gain entry and how many passwords, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just me because I'm a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good luck on getting that information.
Yeah. So, did any of you guys have to rush off and change your Plex password?
Well, I recently deleted my Plex account because I don't want to keep paying for stuff, and I want to move over to Jellyfin. So,
Well, I paid for the lifetime pass on one of their Black Friday sales when it was the original price.
okay. Well, how much was it then back then?
It's like $75
Okay.
for a lifetime pass.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And how many years have you had it roughly? So it's probably paid for itself, right?
It's been, how long was it? 9? It's been like 7 or 8 years.
So there you go. You got your money's worth out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I switched to Jellyfin, I probably got my money's worth. And I do like some of the streaming stuff that Plex has built in, but I dislike some of the direction they're going with the whole, sharing content between servers things. Because that's one of the things that I enjoy. I have my friend group, and we're all, able to access each other's servers from our own servers as long as we have it set up that way. And I can see all their stuff, they can see all my stuff. Well, you can decide which libraries they have access to. And then it's one of the best things about it. I don't know if you can do the same thing with Jellyfin. Attach servers together like that.
You can it's the same kind of concept where, like in Docker, you can bind server locations or the storage locations in the.
Well, like if I set up friends in Plex, like one of my fellow podcasters has his server set up in another state, and I set up friends, or set him up as a friend and give him access to specific libraries of mine, and he gives me access to specific libraries of his, then I log into my server and I can see all of his stuff if I so choose, as opposed to just seeing my stuff. And I can stream it directly onto my server. Not like download it or anything, but I can stream it from his server to mine.
It sounds like something that ought to be doable, but I don't know. I think Jellyfin is really focused on the self-hosting angle of it, to where each instance is based on one server. Although I don't see why there wouldn't be a technical solution to that if it was really something somebody.
I'm okay with it not having it. I guess the simpler might be a little bit better. But yeah.
You have this ability, like client side, to switch from one server to another, and then I don't know how that works, if you have to log in every single time or if it saves your credentials. I would imagine
something to ask Moss.
Yeah, because I don't know if he's using Jellyfin on more than one server or not. That's an interesting question.
He was using mine, and he was using yours. Mine died because I had to rebuild my mini rack, and I started having some hard drive issues, and I'm not done migrating everything yet, so it's not back up yet. But for a while there, he was using yours and he was using mine.
Yeah.
I use the free version of Plex, and I don't have it in a Docker container or anything. I just put Plex server on one of my desktops next to me, which is always on. Then I have the TV right next to that, and the app is free for Fire TV. It's also free for Android. I think you got to pay for the app on iPhone though.
Oh, imagine
but
that.
yeah, it works great. Once in a
Well-
while, it loses the connection. I have to reboot my Fire TV for some reason to get it to show back up. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. I haven't changed my password yet, but I gotta make a note to go do that. But
Well, for people without the pass, Plex Pass or the Lifetime Pass or anything like that, it's great for local streaming.
yeah,
But they've blocked some of the remote streaming, and they've blocked
Right.
a bunch of the sharing stuff. So
Or
it's a little
I
bit
think
different
that-
for that.
Or
good.
if you care about
That's a
open source
reason-
and freedom, software freedom, and all those things that we pretend to care about, then Jellyfin is probably your.
Yeah, but I paid for my Lifetime Pass before they started getting all up.
Well, you know, we make mistakes in life, and we have to kind of just. We have to move on, you know. We got to learn from it, and maybe just kind of reflect a little
It
bit.
wasn't a mistake at the time.
Is that what you told your wife as well? Or is that what
That's the
she
first
told you?
wife. No, that's what he told his first wife.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. She's doing pretty good, so I don't know. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. I don't know. Depends on who you ask. Anyway, okay, Charles, you want to tell us about some bugs in OpenZFS?
Is that
Yeah. So. All right, it's already started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so first of all, this is a unicorn, and it was also in an experimental branch of OpenZFS, and this developer came across this. Basically, the problem is that it's vdev underscore raidz to a size to p size function. So it's a function that's for allocating allocated size to physical side in RAID Z. So this developer in a experimental branch of OpenZFS, he was doing some testing, and he came across this bug where he should have been getting the A size back, but it was reporting the B size, and then to the potential where it could corrupt data. So he said, whoa, this could be a huge problem. And again, he was doing something very aggressive with allocating aggressive allocator for fragmentation settings. He saw these errors. So it took him about 2 days to find it. The fix was very simple, but it was definitely, this is all written in C language, and this type of error is not easy to catch in C language. And he was talking about, that people would say, well, yeah, you should be using Rust for, because it's better than C, yada, yada, yada. Hence, go back and look at the kernel fights and bloodletting over Rust getting into the kernel thing. But anyway, he said that, Rust would provide, a better way to catch this, but, he's not skilled in Rust yet. He's not skilled up on it, and a lot of people who've been supporting OpenZFS are not either. And OpenZFS has been around 20 plus years, 25 years. I think Sun Solaris originally created it. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting. It's been patched, the fix is in, so if it does get into the mainstream version of it, they won't have this issue.
I was just going to ask
thought
you:
it was,
this bug was only in the development branch?
yes, it was in development branch,
okay.
Exactly. Yep.
I
Did I mention that? I guess it.
you
Maybe
mentioned it
I
real
didn't mention
quick.
this, but anyway,
I've never used RAID Z because I find it to be witchcraft.
exactly. Okay.
Well, I mean, because I can't wrap my head around the whole concept of parity bits and all of that, So I'll either do a stripe across, which I hardly ever do that, or just a complete mirror. Seems to be the most reliable way of handling it. So I likely wouldn't have saw this, but gosh, it's cool that people they have enough aggressive development on this thing figure a problem like that out and get a patch to it, because I know RAID Z is probably a popular component of OpenZFS or ZFS. Same thing.
No, this reminds me of errors that you used to hear about in BASIC and in some poorly written C applications way back in like the late 90s. Well, mid to late 90s, since I'm talking about BASIC as well, so could be a little earlier, where you just start writing and then you'd end up overwriting into, another memory allocation. So the error, the type of error has been there for a long time. It just sounds really, really familiar to issues that used to come up with Go2C and BASIC.
And for a C project that's been around a long time, I can see how something like this could happen. But I rely on ZFS quite a bit. Well, every single one of my servers, whenever you're talking storage, ZFS, ZFS,
And
it's the obvious choice.
Bill, your servers, what are they built on? Is it Arch or Ubuntu? And
Ubuntu server.
ZFS,
I've got
server with ZFS.
3 of them now. They're all 3 Ubuntu server. That way I can just install the ZFS tools. And
he's going to redo them all with Proxmox.
Oh, God. Yeah, I doubt it. But, I mean, some of those tools I've just taught myself to manage the containers and ZFS the old-fashioned way, the native way.
Which is why he's going to redo it all in Proxmox, so that way he continues learning.
Just the whole idea.
We're on about me and my Jellyfin and Docker adventures, are we?
Yeah, well, Jellyfin, if I had to be honest, Jellyfin was probably the simplest of all the things I got set up. So getting your Jellyfin up and running doesn't really intimidate me too much.
With Plex, there's a little bit of flexibility in your file structure.
Oh, we've gone back to that, have we? Okay.
Oh, no, you brought it up, so this is your fault.
Okay, fine.
But with Jellyfin, you have to have your file structure just right, or it goes crazy. Yeah.
It's just MP4s, MKVs sitting in a
No. Your folder structure. So you can't have like.
Of course, I already got like movies in this folder, TV shows in this folder, and then I'll have another folder that has.
And then you have to have the individual TV shows in correctly named folders, and then you have to have the seasons within.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you do actually.
Well, the TV shows, yeah, I will make a folder with the TV shows, and then the seasons, I'll make a folder inside a directory inside of that folder. Yeah, I will do that.
You have to.
But like movies, you put the movie in, as long as the movie has the year in the title of the file somewhere, the metadata scrapers for Jellyfin will go out and get all the right information, and it gets handled perfectly well. TV shows, you don't even really need to have separate seasons. I just do that for my own organizing purposes. If you've got, like, you have a TV show in a folder, and then you'll name the file something like S01E01, then it knows that's season 1, episode 1. It goes and gets the metadata for that. And so when you're looking at your interface, you're not seeing S01E01.mkv. You're seeing Downton Abbey season 1, episode 1, and then all of the metadata that goes along with that. It's really slick. But you're right. There's some, but you would do that anyway, wouldn't you? You would have your media at least
on how much
minimally.
Automation you have.
Huh?
Depends on how much automation you have.
Well, you would at least have shows in a TV shows folder, and then each TV show would have its own.
Not necessarily. Okay. Not necessarily. So if you have just the seasons in your TV shows folder, and as opposed to in a TV show folder. Inside there, you have specific TV shows which have their own folder. You have the seasons just in the TV show folder for all your different TV shows. That doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that doesn't work in my brain either, so that's fine.
For you.
Because that's my brain is thinking of the hierarchy as the name of the show, and then because some show you might have a show that was only out one season, so there would only be one season folder under that show.
Okay, now if someone were into the whole piracy thing, not me but someone else,
we're speaking completely hypothetically here. Yeah,
and they had an automated downloader that would download individual episodes as they came out and then move them to a specific folder, hypothetically. And this folder was being watched by Jellyfin so that it would automatically update.
Oh, I see where we're getting
at now.
It's not
automatically moving it to the TV show folder because that requires a whole nother level of automation.
You're wanting to not get in the middle. You're wanting a lot of automated. Let's put this another way. You want, in this hypothetical situation where you've got some kind of something doing all of the fetching of the files, there's not much organization going on there. It's all just being downloaded into one place, and you want automation to be able to just put that where it needs to go, or to understand.
That's an old problem for whoever was doing it, because now they're using an R stack that automatically sends everything to the proper folders.
Right. That's interesting. Yes, Zoe, you can automatically download torrents. I think.
Anyways,
I've been told.
we're way off from where we were supposed to be.
Yeah, but this is the stuff
let's
we care deeply about.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Bodie Corner.
Okay. I shoehorned this in last second because I read something on the Bodie Discord. I think this used to be Moss's detail, but I'm taking it over for this week because one of the things that I love about Cinnamon is the fact that you could hit the left super key, aka the Windows key, and then just start typing letters, and that's your launcher for any apps. Now, in my experience, not every desktop environment can do that. XFCE and Mate natively cannot. It's simply not built in. According to some people online, GNOME and KDE can. So a user on the Bodhi Discord was requesting just a couple weeks ago, I want the super_L key, which is the left super key, to open just the menu, just like Windows. And I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, he's right. I would like that to work too in every desktop environment. Well, the developer, the_waiter, specifically chimed in and says, hey, that was hard to figure out, but I coded that. I did it a while ago, and then he looked it up and says, oh, I did it way back in November of 2023, which is probably after the last time I installed Bodhi on one of my old, now defunct computers. So he confirmed that functionality now is built into the Moksha desktop, which is the fork of Enlightenment that Bodhi Linux uses. It's a very lightweight desktop environment. It's almost like a window manager that functions like a desktop environment. It's very lightweight. It's very flexible.
Crazy fast.
So I found that to be interesting because I like that functionality. To me, I will never use a desktop environment that doesn't have that built in. So I think it's cool that Moksha
do it too. I'm not sure where that comes from. I've seen where it doesn't do it by default, but if you map Super L to Alt F2, it will open the menu. Or if you go into the keyboard shortcuts and just map Super L to the whisker menu, which most XFCE desktops have by default now, that should work. I'm not. That might be an old thing.
Experience.
Go ahead.
In my one experience using XFCE briefly, what happens is there's a crash. The pressing and releasing the Super L key is one functionality, and then pressing and holding the Super L key and then typing another letter in combination with it, like E or D or whatever, those two functionalities crash on many desktop environments. And XFC was one of them.
Right on. Well, if nobody has anything else on that, it's as if Moss was here with us. Moving on to vibrations from the ether. All right, who put this in?
So I put this in. This is an email that we received from a multiple emailer and commenter, Henrik Hemren. Thanks again for reaching out and engaging. And he wrote to us that, hi, in episode 466, you talked about donations and wanted feedback. If you find a safe and relatively easy service to use, I think it's reasonable that we listeners contribute with donations. How far have we got with that, Bill? Have we got anywhere with it yet?
You know, it's interesting. Nowhere.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay. In episode 467, Henrik continues, you talked about camera control via an Android phone. On my laptop LMDE Linux, I use Entangle to control my DSLR camera. I use it mainly for repro photography, but can be used for any tethered shooting. And he puts the website in entangle-photo.org. Best regards, Henrik. Thanks a lot for the email.
Yeah.
I remember it was you, Jim, wasn't it, who were talking about camera controls and Android phones. Am I right?
That's right. I actually followed this guy's link, and it was an interesting piece of software. It actually works with one of my other cameras that I own, that I use for stills, but not with the Blackmagic. I need a specific app for that. But it is neat. Many people do use DSLRs or the mirrorless cameras to shoot video, and they do a very good job of it. In the last decade, there have been many, many cameras by different manufacturers that do nearly as good a job on video as they do on stills, except you have to add accessories if you're going to shoot sound and, want to have more control over focusing and all those kind of things. But you can use many different DSLRs or mirrorless cameras as webcams nowadays, sort of the way I'm using this Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera as a webcam.
Ooh.
Yeah, to go a little further on the whole donations thing, I appreciate everybody's support with that. It is going to happen. I can't give you a time frame on it. It's just been nothing more than a matter of having the time to sit down and work it all out. That's really my only excuse on that. But eventually it will happen, and then I'll get it out there, and then... I don't know that we can offer, some shows offer like incentives and stuff like that. I don't know, because we're already ad free, and I don't, putting ads in the show would probably, boy, that would be enough to finish Moss off for good. So I can't see us doing that ever, but unless it was host read ads or something like that, something specific, but that requires somebody going out and roping that business in, but it's going to happen. I don't have a time frame yet, and when it does, it's almost certainly going to be Patreon to start with, and then maybe
You should ask Clem to sponsor us.
Ooh,
You know what? Without being ironic, I did actually wonder about that, but then I thought, nah, maybe not. Maybe it was being a bit too cheeky.
well, I mean,
It's not like I haven't ever emailed him before or got responses. I think he's actually in the Discord.
he is. You can ping him anytime you want. In fact, he told us to. Anyway, if nothing else on that, we'll move on to check this out. Majid, what do you got here?
So I just put this in more out of courtesy more than anything else. So when I interviewed Popey a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned that he'd been involved in a website called Nerdy Day Trips. The idea that, say if you have to travel for some work or something to a particular random place, what do you do when you get there? And so there's basically this Google map which has all different places of interest in different countries and different cities. So for example, I have found out that in Fort Wayne there's only one thing of any use that anybody would like to see, called Fort Harrison State Park.
It's not really worth seeing.
Okay, fine. Well, that's the only thing, even if it was. I don't know which suckers would live around there. Anyway,
Some people moved far, far away and never moved back.
Well, I've never heard of that thing you just said, so I. Fort Harrison.
Anyway,
Fort Harrison
so
State Park is in Indianapolis. That was interestingly, that was. I was actually stationed there in the Army for a stint because it was the finance center of the United States Army. It's not far from the home of. You probably didn't want to get this far into it, did you? Too bad.
No, I didn't. I just wanted to make a pithy and interesting comment.
Right, we were just picking on you and moving on.
Yeah, well, we're not moving on now. That was former president, and I don't remember exactly which one, but it was Benjamin Harrison. The post was named after him. Well, the post was shut down probably because of AI or whatever is doing all of the soldiers' finance now. And it's a state park, so yeah, you're from Fort Wayne. You're at about, it's funny. You got to go to an entirely different city to find anything interesting for smart people to do. That figures.
Anywho, that's what that's about. Anyway,
You brought
if
it
it makes
up.
you feel any better. Sorry, that's the only thing about nerdy day trips. That's all I was going to mention.
I have something to add about that, actually. I listened to the original podcast where he talked about this Nerdy Day Trips project a couple times, actually. And the interesting thing about it, aside from just having it as a resource, is it was a site that existed that he had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
That he used to check out. And then it disappeared for whatever reason. The person who was maintaining it just gave up, forgot about it, didn't do anything with it. And he decided to revive it and go into the Internet Archive and some other places and kind of pull out as much of the old data as he could find. And then he decided to use what skills he had to, build this site, with the map and being able, and then, having the capability for other people, after he populated it with so many entries, other people are now adding to it. So to me, the interesting story was a resource that used to exist that went away, he was able to revive. And there's a site that I had on my radar to do the exact same thing for a long time, but I don't know if I have the server side skills and all that to really do it. But yeah, it's an interesting idea.
I'm surprised. I've never really. I saw that or heard that same episode you were talking about, and I just assumed it was a European thing. I'm really surprised.
It's worldwide.
I'm surprised that there would be anything in Indiana. I am shocked. So
there's
that's
interesting stuff
cool.
all over the world.
Just looked it up, and or I was just using it, and it turns out there's a National Video Game Museum really close by me.
Hey,
see?
Yeah. Add it to the site if it's not already there. Mm-hmm. Oh, there it is.
Oh no, I got it from the site.
Okay, right on.
Well done. All right, Charles, you got some AI bollocks.
Yeah, AI bollocks and other such musing. So I was listening to Leo Laporte's podcast, Intelligent Machines, and he was interviewing these two professors from the University of Washington up in Seattle, and they have a course and a project that, and it's called, ironically enough, the Bullshit Machine. And basically, these guys have been kind of dealing with misinformation and facts and data and, what is real and what is not, and, and then trying to have a logical, rational conversation or research about data. And, now with the onset of LLMs and chat bots and everything that, they modified their course to kind of deal with this. And basically, if you go to that main website, and there's a bunch, I think there's like 17 or 18 lessons that they've used with their students and they're trying to get this pushed out to other colleges and high schools and elementary schools, because obviously we're in a new era where there's lots of fake information, a lot of bullshit, and just to kind of be educated about what AI is and what it is not. It's a simulation, but the marketing to I thought this was interesting to fight the marketing machine, the billions of dollars that are going in, is, it's going to make it, AI is going to be just like a human, it's going to think like a human, and which it's not, but you wouldn't never know that. But I just thought this was interesting, and if you have kids or you're interested in this, it's got some good lessons and stuff. And anyway, I just thought for information to combat the AI hype, I thought this was a valuable thing to note. So that's what that's all about.
God knows somebody needs to be the voice of reason out there with this stuff, because it's improving, but it's not improving at the same rate that it's being proliferated by any means. And people,
I think like all things, it's a tool that needs to be used in a specific way. It is amazing the things it can do. I, for example, got it to help me make a presentation that I was going to be giving about doctors and addiction, as in doctors with addiction problems, and how to deal with them, whatever. And it was very helpful.
Are you an alcoholic?
No, I'm not. I've never drank in my entire life. The closest I got to was a rum truffle, and I felt really guilty about that. I have had non-alcoholic beer, though, and I don't know why anybody would have it. But, I have had that.
People that drink alcoholic beer agree with you.
But yeah, so I mean, so I think, but you're right, Bill. It is being forced down because they need to make some of their money back. Did you hear the thing about OpenAI was selling part of itself to Oracle for like 300 billion, and you just sat there going, I mean, these numbers don't mean anything anymore after a certain point. Do you know what I mean?
it's just funny money anymore,
Yeah, money that doesn't exist. It's just in a spreadsheet and a database somewhere. Anyway, I'm going to stop ranting.
Yeah, and just to follow up, these instructors are teaching their students how to use AI for, how to use them, how to engage with them, but just the other part of the big thing is that, they're not magic, they're not thinking like humans, they're simulating because of what they've been programmed to do, or to grab a token. So anyway, just to add on that, they're not anti-AI, just to be clear.
No, it doesn't make sense to be anti-AI. It really doesn't, because it's here. It's going to be in your
and it
children's
works well.
pockets.
It does work well.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest proponents that I've spoken to recently, surprisingly, was Popey. In that interview, he was like, I use all of them. I use this for this one. I use this for that one. And I was just kind of like, well, okay. And then I'd not thought about, I myself, I just thought so much about the potential problems that I'd not really started to sit and think about what it will be useful. And as I said, I started using it a little bit. I mean, obviously, our mind's not technical coding or anything like that, but I have started using it a little bit. And yeah, it does make research much quicker. It does make making presentations much quicker. So, I think, yes, it's here. It's here to stay, whether we like it or not. Let's just move on with it, I think. Sensibly.
Right.
Sensibly is the point, I suppose.
Yeah, sensibly and logical and rationally. Yeah, okay.
Oh, boy, pump the brakes.
Actually, do your due diligence and double check.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Moving swiftly on. Housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see or hear something you'd like us to talk about, or you think we should be talking about, tell us. Send us email, mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Discord and Telegram. Links to all those in the show notes. Our next episode will be 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, September 28th, 2025. There's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Next Saturday, we will host a roundtable live stream. Please come and join us using Discord voice channel at 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, September 20th, 2025. There's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. And we mean that. We really, one thing we take a lot of pride in on this show is that this is the podcast by the Linux community, meaning anybody can participate in the conversation. And we mean it.
That's where we pick up our new hosts.
Yeah. So that's we mean it, and it's for real. Livestream information is also at mintcast.org/livestream. Wrapping up, Joe, where can we get more of you?
Well, I'm on a couple other podcasts. I'm on the Linux Link Tech Show, which is tlts.org. I'm on the Linux Lugcast, which is linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org. Or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. Link in the show notes. I really appreciate every dollar that people send me. I make sure to bring it up on the show. Whatever you put in those notes, I bring here. And I let everyone know what I ended up spending the money on. So, Moss could not be here with us today. There are some links in the show notes to talk to him. That's Full Circle Weekly News, Moss at BodieLinux.com. He's on Mastodon at Zyvala at Hostux.social. And occasionally he will put a show up on HPR. Bill?
Yeah, I'm Bill at mintcast.org for email. I'm Bill_H on Discord, at WCHauser3 at fostodon.org on that there Mastodon. Also, check out a couple other two shows I'm involved in. Linux OTC, I do that show with Eric and Majid, and Three Fat Truckers. Links to both of those in the show notes. Majid?
So, you can email me on drmajid@mintcast.org, and you can get me as Atypical Doctor on Discord. I also have the Atypical Doctor podcast, and I'm also on Linux OTC with Bill and Eric. Eric couldn't be here. He can be reached by email he can be reached by email at eric@mintcast.org. Charles?
Yes, I can be reached at charles@mintcast.org and Mr. PDX on Discord. Jim?
And I am Jim at mintcast.org. I go by GNU to Linux on Discord, and I have a occasional podcast on my own YouTube channel, The Linux Shortcut on YouTube.
Before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintcast possible. I do the audio editing and host the servers, which runs the website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server in which we host our raw show notes. Well, our show notes and our raw audio. We'd like to thank archive.org for hosting our audio files, Hobstar for our logo, and NetRD for our animated Discord logo, Londoner for our time syncs and various other contributions. Last but not least, the Linux Mint development team for the distro we love to talk about. Thanks, Clem.
Thanks, Clem.
And Co. And wrap. Thanks, everybody in the live